if we put very static legislations, we cannot solve the dynamic problems.
And what would be the ideal AI governance type strategy?
Still, we have different problems and fragmentation, even in European Union part. We cannot say shadow AI is a kind of governance problem. I think it's basically security problems.
Onur, you're a rare professional with degrees in engineering, information law, and a master's from Cambridge. Most people pick a lane, but you have decided to do all three. So what was the driver? How does this feed into your mission and that you've been pursuing for the last decade?
First of all, thank you very much for having me, Lee. It is great together with you. And maybe I can start with that because last year I made my first TEDx speech and I just tried...
Amazing.
Thank you very much. I just tried to explain my background stories like that. When I was a kid, I dreamed about the God, and I thought that if God is a perfect creation, then he should be an engineer because look at around you. It is a perfect design. Water flows in a perfect, design, and, it's a perfect balance in nature. Then after all, I just try to understand the justice in the nature. So I thought that he should have been a lawyer because it is about the justice. So that is why I'm always saying that cybersecurity is my first love. And first of all, I'm an engineer. But after all, getting law degree and understanding the legislation and what is going on the justice side. So this is a perfect combination right now. And of course, as an alumni, from University of Cambridge, it's an honor for me. So that is a perfect combination. So I'm just trying to make a perfect puzzle, like an image of God, hopefully.
Oh, that is really like such a warm and touching story, like kind of bringing in all of your childhood into essentially trying to create law and order and beauty in the work that you do, essentially, right?
Yeah, actually, that world is changing, and after technology just impacting every moves, every steps in our life, especially in the business life. So being a technology engineer every day, giving another value, another excitement to you. And of course, understanding the legislations as a lawyer, you're always very good about judgments if the things is attacked or fabricated. So that is why it's a good position for me. I'm very happy right now putting myself in a strong position in that kind of AI era. So yeah, this is me.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that most businesses are struggling with, as you mentioned, is trying to create that beauty, trying to create that harmonization and develop that through communication. So your area in terms of governance, risk and compliance, regulatory oversight, AI, and developers, they all have very different languages. And trying to put them all into a room, very often they all have very different ideas of what good looks like. How do you take the knowledge that you've got across those three different streams and actually develop a mechanism for communication with those teams?
Actually, it is like that. If we got this conversation 10 years ago, most probably we were talking about, how hard putting people together at the same table and understanding the same angle of technology, like in software developers and ethicists or lawyers or GRC, development side persons. But after all, today we've got still the same problems. We don't solve that kind of problems. We are just, putting in other technologies on and on. So I think it is a big, big snowball right now for us. But just one thing, it's so obvious and very clear for us. If we cannot make or work these multidisciplinary things in this kind of world, we cannot understand any technologies and we cannot solve our problems. So sometimes we are putting lots of different disciplines together, people speaking the same language like English, but nobody can understand each other. So I think breaking barrier between these different disciplines is everything today. That is why every day we are saying multidisciplinary work is everything. So if you just looking at it from legal side, you are putting some very fictionary rules
Yeah.
And you cannot understand the real fundamentals of technologies, and you're just saying, do it, do that. But when you turn your face to the engineer side, they're just laughing and just saying, we cannot do that. So you have to sit together and understand the real fundamentals, needs and requirements about technologies, and you have to find a way, a real way. I'm not talking about that very theoretical way, very practical way to solve problems and make our life easier and practical.
We often talk about something called digital trust. In your example that you've given there in terms of breaking down those barriers and kind of getting everybody out of their silos, what does that mean in terms of digital trust? Does that actually create digital trust if you bridge those gaps?
That is a very fancy wording, that digital trust. Actually, every different years, just think about that. Every different years, we always found a different, very fancy wording, and we just try to describe in different ways. So I love digital trust. It is a big umbrella because you can put GRC, cybersecurity, IT or technology audit, privacy, data protection, everything under one umbrella. But the thing is, digital trust or digital sovereignty is not the same thing. So digital trust is a good thing from technology perspective.
Yeah.
But if you don't put the democratization and the sovereignty at the same time under this umbrella, it generally means very, maybe we can say fancy, but fantasy gaming to the technology people. So I love it, but we have to be very realistic about it. Because nowadays, every day we are seeing very spectacular news coming from different technology platforms. So that is why we have to be very realistic and understand what is going on, not just in Ireland, not just in UK, not just in Europe, around the world. It is a big picture, and this technology didn't create it for us, for everyone, for all individuals around the world.
So I love how you went quite practical there in terms of, calling on kind of generic terms. So one of the things that I know you've highlighted is the idea of generic legal checklists when it comes to actually doing any kind of implementation around governance. But why do you think this old mindset is now becoming dangerous?
The thing is, Lee, right now we are using new emerging technologies. We started everything with maybe, of course, everyone remembered, the cloud computing, first of all, and IoT after all, and the big data. Then we called everything, fabricated data is coming. But in today's world, we are talking about AI, machine learning, quantum computing. So that is changing, it is evolving. And in the past, but I'm not talking about very far from away, the past, 5 years ago, we were creators. But right now, AI is a created thing, and after all, today is a creator too. So that is why these checklists doesn't work for AI right now. If we are talking about big tech companies right now, again, I am saying in the past, when we are saying everything IT governance, before we are calling everything AI governance, we were talking about, 100 rows of risks in the companies. But in today, we are talking about thousands, millions of rows. So how can you manage this number of risks in a company without using any technologies? So if we just looking at our legislations right now, we put lots of very old-fashioned descriptions about risk management and risk-based approaches. Because, I started my career at 2012, and before 2012, just think about, most probably since 50 years, people were calling everything risk-based approach. And today, we are still going on in the same line, and it doesn't solve our problems. So the thing is, my main understanding from these legislations and in this technology environment, if we put very static legislations, we cannot solve that kind of dynamic problems. So we have to create dynamic legislations which can enhance itself, update itself I'm not talking about in 1 year, 2 years. I'm talking about in seconds, in minutes. Hopefully, we will see that kind of updated and enhanced, augmented legislations in the future. But hopefully, it's not a far away from near future.
Yeah. Considering the pace at which AI is being developed at the moment, we're probably going to need something like that. I get very worried with the idea that it could be within seconds or minutes, because essentially the governance piece on top of that is going to be very complicated.
Yeah.
And the maths behind that will be absolutely outrageous. So that kind of ties into the next sort of thread that I was thinking about, which is, from a practical perspective, AI governance is going to be very different to GDPR and cyber governance. We've kind of touched on the speed element as one of them, but are there any others that kind of jump out at you in terms of the difference between GDPR and cyber, and what would be the ideal AI governance type strategy?
Actually, that is fragmented after we learned everything about typical governance, because when we are looking AI kind of technologies, governance perspective, we generally trying to segregate at different issues.
Yeah.
Today, we are lack of sectoral-based legislations and the directives, so I am waiting to see that kind of sectoral-specific directives about AI. So from AI governance perspective, I think the most important thing understand, first of all, this is a different technology, and the fundamentals of technologies have to rising with different risks. So today, when you're focusing on the production side of AI, you have to be aligned together, DevOps team, MLOps team.
Yeah.
So if you are looking from legal perspective, you have to put the right rules into technology in a proper way. I mean that in the past, for example, we were talking about human behavior analytics tool.
Yeah.
It is just collecting your logs, your action logs, and after all, just trying to profile all employees. But today, after we embed AI into that kind of tools, it is just generated a new employee to you as a profile, and you can embed everything into an agent. So it means that it is replicated, fabricated, and sometimes created something better than human beings as an employee. So we cannot manage that kind of governance level with very static questions like, do you have a disaster recovery center? So we generally tend to ask that kind of questions and get an answer and collecting, samples. So this is not working like that.
So which kind of talks to the next thought process, that if you can't walk around with a clipboard asking, do you have a new DR structure set up, is what are the skills? What are the skills for a bespoke AI governance framework? Because from what I can tell, there isn't a one size fits all anymore. It's not going to be set in 27001 with 96 or 93 controls. That's not how it's going to have to be. It's going to have to be dynamic around the organization, around their strategy, which kind of brings in that strategic view. But, what skills do you think are needed?
Actually, I'm thinking like that. We still not there about AI governance. We are still learning about that. But what I understand from last 2 years, the main objectives for AI governance is by design thing, like privacy by design, security by design, democracy by design, whatever you want to say that. Because in today, we are trying to handle different platform or application problems because they launched all systems without controlling the prompts or without they testing the real life crisis examples.
Yeah.
Grok is a perfect example right now, and we will have lots of this kind of examples. Grok and X is very popular and very spectacular. That is why it's very easy to make news and very easy to hear something about that. But since last 3 years, they put in force different legislations and they launched different applications and platforms suddenly. because there are lots of gray zones. We're still trying to understand what is the ability of AI. So suddenly we've got different kind of the sexual abusement or misunderstanding or information disinformation kind of problems. Every day we are just trying to facing and understand problems. Last year's biggest problem, the liability problem. Maybe you remember, because this year we heard some good things from World Economic Forum's annual meetings 2026 in Davos.
Yeah.
Last year, in 2025, at the beginning of the year, we heard very bad things about European democratization systems from US management part. So after all, suddenly they took step back over about AI liability directive. So
Yeah.
last year's biggest problem was responsibility and liability problems. But this year, I can say some positive things, very optimistic things about our future, because we are aligning around Europe and we are creating a new notion, maybe we can say. It is Eurolink, and this EU Inc. means that we are creating new technologies and we are sharing our rules together, we are sharing our investments together, and we are sharing our sources together. So that is perfect. So it means that we will be more powerful. But just one question about that. Still, we have different problems and fragmentation. Even in European Union part, still we've got different understanding about what is privacy, what is democracy. So first of all, we have to sit together and understand the real needs about data democratizations, kind of fancy wordings, then maybe we can solve our problems together. But I am more optimistic if I compare last year, this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good place to come in and talk about something that you're quite passionate about and you've got a very clear voice about, which is Silicon Island, which is essentially a strategy to corner 20% of the global market share for semiconductors by 2030. And I think my first question around that is that achievable? And secondly, to talk about the other thing that you're very passionate about is, have you gotten behind this particular initiative because of the digital sovereignty component and how important that is right now, given the current geopolitical headwinds we are facing?
Yeah, this is a great question, Lee, because we generally tend to talking about software things and AI platform-based or the client-based or the governance-based area. But the thing is, what is going on the production sides? We generally just skipping understanding that part. But during the pandemic time, just think about that. We've got really bad lack of chips problems. Even when you're just trying to buy a PlayStation, for example, when you go, enter in the store, they generally saying, oh, I'm so sorry, we are putting an empty box in here. So maybe next month, maybe next year, you should come back. So maybe after all this kind of PlayStation problems, all EU countries come together. No, actually, of course, you got different kind of chips problems. So that is why last year they put in force a new legislations and they are calling it EU Chips Act. So it was one of the major points for us, because after we understood that we are very dependent about chips in other countries like US, like China, like Taiwan. So all EU countries just trying to create a new cluster. And in this cluster, they are integrated the technology companies, the governments, and the production investments. So that is why they are calling it a cluster. And in Ireland, we are calling it Silicon Isle. That is a perfect wording, I think.
It's really nice.
The Emerald Isle, so we are calling it Silicon Isle. So that is a good thing. And you know what, even because just think about Ireland is a small country, but even Ireland kind of country, we've got really, really perfect production companies around Ireland. So Ireland got really good power, especially in semiconductor area.
Okay.
So we are calling that vision North Star. North Star is not a short-term projects for us.
Yeah.
It is a long-term ambitions for not just Ireland, for all European side. So last year it was a big, maybe we can say, a force battle between European countries, because all countries just trying to be a leader in that kind of very major area. But after this year, we heard about EU Inc. Maybe it's the perfect solution to all of them, because it means that we are coming together and we are sharing all investments, all that kind of sources together. But Ireland is at the heart of that kind of legal leadership, and after all, is a production leadership too. So there are three main things in that projects, in that vision, we can say. The first one is all European countries coming together, and they want to take 20% of production of semiconductors for technology area. That is a perfect number, you know that. Just think about around the world, China and US, really big, you know, game changers. And right now, if we can get 20% of these markets, it means that we will have really big powers over in other countries, in other continents, in other governments, we can say. And another one, just you mentioned, digital sovereignty. I think it is everything, because if we can achieve these semiconductor markets achievements, it means that we will be independent about chips. And digital sovereignty means that when you are creating any platforms to manage any AI applications, AI solutions, or machine learning, quantum computing, all that kind of emerging tech solutions, you are independent. Whatever you want to do that, you can do that. This is your rules and this is your world. So you can put your enforcements, your democratization understanding, your legislative perspectives in that platforms. So digital sovereignty is another human dignity area, we can say. And the last one is, of course, the technology power, because around the world right now, all different powerful countries just trying to create their platform farm. For example, in US, they are calling it Stargate, and they just put lots of different very, very rich technology companies in that notions. And if we can do that in Europe, it means that we will be another powerful game changer in this market. So three main things, and we will still lots of way to walk, but very good position right now. We are a good production country.
To play devil's advocate, is the CHIPS Act actually providing the tailwinds? I know that you've just come from Davos, and I know that the plan is set, but have you actually seen any practical changes or movements or investments into key areas that have actually really kind of or support your enthusiasm?
I saw actually I've got roles in that market right now, so I'm very positive about that. As a hands-on example, we can say, not just in the Ireland part, even in the North part too, there are more than 11 main companies. They are producing different kind of chips environment and chips, maybe we can say materials. So that is everything for us, because if you can get the valuable materials, it means that you can product it. So maybe we can say, I think this is the important point, because Ursula von der Leyen can say about EU Inc. is a solution, because we've got that kind of sources. They trust that investment and this cluster. So very positive. Yeah, they are ready to produce new platforms, but just one thing we've got. We need some know-how, because like in Ireland, around Europe, North Star is not just about investments and the money. It is about talents and the R&D projects too. So they're just trying to teach people. They're just trying to train people to understand that area. It's not a, very old-fashioned. It is very new area for people. So there are different aspects about North Star. One of them is talents, talent rising. Another one is R&D, and the another part is investment. So all of them coming together. So that is why we need all young people come and train themselves and be part of that kind of very future promising sector.
It's quite difficult to get students that are coming through that for the last sort of 20 years have been told that they all need to become software engineers, and overnight we're going, hang on a second, we've got a geopolitical problem, we now need everyone to become hardware engineers. That's going to be a pretty hard sell, and it's also going to be a harder sell because a lot of the big paying salary jobs are all going to be still sitting in the software space, primarily funded by US multinationals that are sitting in Ireland. So, you know, how do you see that PR problem unfolding?
Lee, actually, as I mentioned, cluster, for example, around Ireland right now, cyber skill set and IDA, there are lots of that kind of educational and sectoral based companies just trying to give different scholarships and trainings to young people around Ireland. So if anyone really wants to dig in that area, please check it. Please check it. Just write, for example, semiconductors in Ireland. They can find that kind of different trainings because they are really so eager to tend to train people and give and put their investments in that kind of training area. There are lots of opportunities, but you are so right, because if we are compare with the investment and the PR is a little bit low hand, we can say, but that is a great opportunity for us. If anyone wants to come and join, just ask us, just search about that, because there are lots of perfect opportunity. And I have to say that if I am a new joiner, a new graduate right now, I really want to be part of that kind of area, because it means it is just future promising. It means that future, nobody can say, oh, future is coming from, very old-fashioned audit ways or something. No, future is coming with AI kind of emerging technologies. And if you don't have any platforms, if you don't have that kind of productions, you're nothing. You're just an end user in that kind of era. So that is why if you can create, it means that you are the future. So be part of it. There are lots of very old people.
Be part of the digital sovereignty.
That is just like that. There are lots of very, very old people working in, all the GRC and very, that kind of, we can say, historical departments, old school departments. Yeah. This is new. That is new. And young people got perfect technological reflexes. So they have to use their reflexes in there.
So let's get practical. Say a company with, say, 150 people, anything between 150 and maybe 750, right? They want to adopt AI, but they are scared of the liability piece. And we've already spoken about the liability. But there is also another side, which is not only just the liability, it would be the PR when things potentially go wrong, right? So without that organization hiring 100 consultants or an army of consultants, where can they start as an organization?
Maybe we can say small companies or medium-sized companies and the large companies, different kind of approaches when they are managing their AIs. Let me give an example from Microsoft and SAP kind of companies. Right now, they are creating their multifunctional advisory boards, and every day they are just trying to hear some different feedbacks from different countries, we can say, to understand their local legislations, their local approach, their local priorities, and their local markets. So they're just designing very shiftable and flexible their approaches about AI. But if we are talking about small size and medium size kind of companies, mainly they've got that kind of problems right now. They generally wants to embed their AI modules into their systems, but they generally just keeping understanding what kind of data and main infrastructure they've got. So they generally embedding AI in the middle of the infrastructure, but if they've got any vulnerabilities around their infrastructure, suddenly it's affected badly. So after they just try to solve data breaches problems or disinformation problems, or when they put any reports or very strategic documentation into that kind of chatbots or AI, tools, suddenly they've got very bad ending. So the thing is, if they want to invest in AI tools or platforms, whatever they want to say that. First of all, they have to isolate their infrastructure systems. Then after all, which part is really strong? They have to embed AI first. They can make it bigger project for their feature. So another problem is, especially these small size companies generally is an end user for AI.
Yeah.
So they are skipping about third party risk management issues if they are not, not.
You're touching on a very, something that's very close to my heart. So yes.
And for example, around Europe, in Ireland too, DORA is one of the major points for the financial services companies. But after all, if that small size companies don't have to get an assurance about DORA kind of legislation, they generally tend skipping everything about third-party managements. So suddenly, all that AI producer companies' problems become these small-size companies' problems too. Yeah. So it means that the ship is just sinking, but all together they are sinking. So I think one of the old-fashioned things, of course, third-party management, third-party risk management, but it is still very major for us. We cannot say it is old-fashioned. We have to focus on that too.
I think you mentioned the end user aspect to AI. Probably one of the biggest risks is shadow AI. 78% of employees bring their own AI to work. Yeah. Whether you like it or not, it's there. So how would you address that problem?
Shadow AI I think it will be another very PhD topic for us. In the future, most probably they will open that kind of services in the, academic area, because it's one of the most dangerous area, shadow AI. Because just think about that. We generally using our smartphones, tablets, laptops, and you're embedding lots of different AI tools without asking and getting any permission from your companies. And as you mentioned, suddenly you're like, bring your own device, bring your own AI things into your companies or business services or the professional area. So we cannot say shadow AI is a kind of governance problem. I think it's basically security problems. We can say again, it is a network management, it is a infrastructure security, it is a vulnerability, it's a software problems. We can say about that. So I like to mention, it is a good quote from Microsoft. They generally facing that kind of security problems, and one of the very, very high level management people just mentioned about that. We are saying it is a co-pilot, not pilot. So this is just a pilot. This is not a pilot, it's a co-pilot. You can trust that kind of AI applications badly. So what we are seeing in that kind of, especially big size companies, because companies so tend to give them different solutions about AI, practical chatbots and report analyzing kind of solutions to them. And every day, lots of companies just trying to solve that kind of privacy data breach problem.
And not the security one.
Not security one. Because
and I think that's the biggest one, is dealing with it.
It is the major ones. Because in the first hand, people generally trying to solve data breach problem. If they can solve their data breach problem, they can discover what kind of leakage they've got. Then after, if they've got a major security teams, they can dig in and understand the root cause problems. That is why they generally skipping that root causing part. They putting different holes into their infrastructure, and at the end of the day, all these holes coming together and making a big problems in the systems. And we are calling that generally, the PR problems.
So, in closing, you are clearly passionate about digital sovereignty. So what do you feel the biggest risks are to our digital sovereignty over the next 5 years, looking towards 2031?
I can say 3 things about that, Liam. The first one is, I think, one of the biggest problem right now, not just in Ireland, not just in Europe, around the world, I mean that. This is data democratization. Because if we want to create an AI kind of solution for our future, and if we want to create a new super intelligence like a God to us, we have to hear all different voices, not just specific groups, not just minority groups, not just an elite groups, not just one continent. We have to hear all voices to create a new super intelligence together. But today, we are lack of understanding different voices around the world.
Yep.
In Europe, in US, in China, we are so lucky. We are talking about AI, we are talking about future promise and emerging technologies. But if you join any other communities and the countries' meetings, it's so obvious that still different continents still got lack of internet problems, for example, lack of electricity problems, for example.
Yep.
So it means that we are creating a new superintelligence just hearing rich countries' voices. So data democratization, one of the future problem for us. And the second one is, of course, the human dignity problem, because we tend to blame AI tools, AI platforms about bias problems, about that kind of we can say the gender, the skin color,
Yep.
whatever you want to say, all that kind of different labeling problems. But just think about it. All AI tools just feeding with historical data. All this historical data is created by ours, by human beings. So we created all this data, and today we find a punch box, and we are just saying, oh, because of you, you got bias problems. Because of you, you got discrimination problems. No, because of us, you got that kind of problems. So when we create the rules and understand this practical and, as I mentioned, dynamic legislations for the future, we have to, first of all, embed the real human dignity understanding. Even in EU AI Act in today, we do not have any description about what is AI. If you ask any legislation, what is AI? You cannot get any direct answers. It is just explaining to you what is AI systems.
I think it's a 21-page document trying to explain what AI is.
Just think about it. So there are really big gray zone. And the last one for me, of course, the ethic problems, human dignity problems, and the data democratization biggest problems. But the third and one of the biggest technical problems is we still have no idea what is the limit of AI. We are still trying to learn. So I think nobody should say to describe themselves, oh, I am an AI expert, I am an AI professional. We are still students about it, and every day we are learning. So that is why this is so important to understand. We are still trying to discover this technology, and whenever we will say, oh, it is done, we learned everything, we will lose this war. So we have to very humble and very open-minded about what is the limit this technology. It is still growing. It is so young if we compare with other things in the world.
Yeah. Onur, thank you very much. Really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you very much for having me. That is a lovely chat. Thank you very much, Lee.